Welcome back to The Evil Within. This is our Kurayami run through the DLCs for Kidman. We're in Chapter 2 of the assignment. By completing the assignment in Kurayami mode, you get the achievement, Not Afraid of the Dark. We saw that Ruvik just closed the door that was our exit back to where we were going to use the fuses, the last of the fuses, to open the sluice gate so we could follow Joseph. That makes us go through kind of a horde of zombies here. If you time this right, you can get through it fairly simply. You'll kill two of them on spikes and just lure the other one out of your way. Alright, so we've talked about the philosophy and the lore that's going on. The first thing that we're going to find in this episode that kind of furthers that is another document, another recording of Dr. Jimenez. It's going to be a little while, but they throw so much in so quickly that I want to try to cover some of it a little ahead of you actually seeing it, so that you can hear it when it plays. But so far to date, we've had 3 audio recording tapes from Dr. Jimenez that talked about STEM. We had the first one was labeled 229. We didn't get them in order, but I'll give them to you in chronological order, numerical order. Number 229 was a statement about the people that they were attaching, the patients that they were attaching to STEM were coming back and having seen Ruvik. They weren't calling him Ruvik at the time, but having seen a cloaked figure. And Jimenez was wondering if that wasn't a ghost in the machine, if that wasn't Ruben's conscious left behind, because they used his brain as the hardware to unlock the STEM system. And Jimenez was wondering if that wasn't really a ghost in the machine, that Ruvik wasn't embedded in the machine somehow when that happened. Then number 231 talked about Mobius wanting, the system seemed unstable now, and that they wanted to start using more stable minds put into the STEM. In the last episode, both of those came in the first chapter of the assignment. In the last episode, part 1 of chapter 2, we found note number 239, which talked about now they're no longer coming out confused and afraid and having seen Ruvik. Well, I guess in 231, so first they were seeing Ruvik. In 231, they were coming out comatose or completely insane. And then in 239, they were coming out, in the last episode, they were dying. Mostly dying or just completely insane afterwards. And Jimenez started to wonder if they used more stable minds, if that wouldn't cleanse the system in some way. So at that time, he was still thinking he could somehow, even if there was a ghost in the machine, even though he was wondering whether it was Ruben, if he couldn't make some deal with Ruben, or at least guide and control this new entity, Ruvik, in the way that he controlled and guided Ruben Victoriano before he was made into Ruvik. Now coming up, we're going to find number 246, which obviously comes after 239, so this is a little bit farther along. This is where Jimenez discovers Leslie, by hooking Leslie up to the STEM while Ruvik's active.
Today was something truly surprising. He was one of the last groups of test subjects. Just another patient I expected to babble and maybe even die. Patient 105, Leslie Withers. Ruben had singled him out as a useless subject, but he must have known. He knew I would read his notes. What else was Ruben lying to me about? But this Leslie, he emerged cognate, calm, and able to report fully what he had experienced inside. His unique pathology allowed him to successfully navigate his STEM experience with little repercussion. They know nothing of his existence, but no doubt he is the key. If we all share the consciousness, then with him, I too should be able to experience the STEM, potentially even suppress the more unsavory aspects of it. With him, I can be the master of the very technology I helped create. Mobius will see my worth and let me rise even higher in their ranks.
Now listen to the arrogance in that. He finds Leslie. Now we know from the main game, we saw a scene where Ruben had Leslie in a pod and was experimenting on him with early prototypes of STEM. We know that Ruben knows that their brainwaves are in sync and that he could download himself into Leslie and escape through that way. But listen to the arrogance in Jimenez's voice and that he could become the master of the technology he's helped create. At least he's got enough self-awareness to realize that Ruben really created it. He only helped.
I doubt you and I are strong enough.
But he can become the master of it.
Joseph, watch yourself.
I'll be fine. Quick, look around, see if there's another way out.
No. I mean, the arrogance of that. He thinks that he can go in here and confront and suppress the ghost in the machine. So that's the mindset of Jimenez when he was taking that on. We've talked about how the 90-10 rule of life, that life is 10% what happens to you and 90% your response to it. That 90% that you own is your response to how you react to the things in life that you have no control over. That's your 90%. And it's the largest portion of life is your response. Well, and we've talked about how self-confidence, self-reliance, looking inward, placing your hope on yourself and your own abilities and your own fortitude is the key to individual freedom. But Jimenez is the extreme of that. He's not just confident, he's overconfident. He's confident without any reason for the confidence. He's the kid that sits in the class that thinks they know everything, that has never even heard the subject, right? It's the person that comes onto the job that thinks they have every answer and want to change everything about how everything's ever been done because they know the right way. It's that over self-confidence. I mean, we know where it leads to for Jimenez, right? It leads to him being crushed by an amalgam. He's dead. So there's one thing to have self-confidence. There's another thing to have an overinflated ego. It just, if you cannot realize your own limitations, then you cannot realize how to use the 90%. If you're just so overly confident that you just are that brash about the whole thing, that's not self-reliance.
They've refocused the efforts of the other programs to support our research. STEM priority has seemingly overridden other departments' individual research. Chemical and botanical studies are focused now on tempering, priming subjects for their inevitable connection. Now that the prototype is up and running, experiments continue. Upon their return from STEM integration, patients are interviewed extensively. While their particular pathologies inform their experiences, there are commonalities. They all experience the same settings, the same occurrences. The world they inhabit becomes larger with every new visitor. This suggests that shards of each user's consciousness are left behind inside the STEM, creating a community. It's as if internally a new world is being built.
There are a few key things there that are very important to take away. One, that this is prior to any of the other STEM things we had. This is all prior to Ruvik. All the other notes we've had from Dr. Jimenez have been after Ruvik was placed inside the machine, after the key was put in the lock and Ruben's, the hardware Ruben sold became STEM. That's first. Now let's listen to this conversation with the administrator.
You're losing focus, kid. I warned you about that.
How could this place exist? I don't understand. What's happening in here?
Ruvik knows you're here. He's feeding off you. But there are more important problems. That detective.
Joseph isn't something to worry about. He doesn't suspect anything.
He's expendable. How else do you want me to say it? Remove him. That's an order.
What are you doing?
Killing Joseph? That's not gonna help me find Leslie.
He can't be trusted. He'll turn on you. They all will, once they know what you're after. We told you. You're weak, kid. And you're disappointing us.
Okay, so the scene from chapter 5 is about to play out
Sebastian,
they're going to be
Maybe we can lift this enough for
Ruvik is
Kidman
going to
to go
separate
under and
Kidman
open it
and
from the other
Sebastian
side.
because he can't
We're
let them
counting on you.
talk about who Ruvik himself is. Let's go back to the tape, number
odd,
215, the previous
they
to
catch
that.
you instead of just
Important there
killing
that they're building a world inside of
He didn't
Stim,
see me as a threat.
and that a shard of everybody that's been connected to Shim is being left behind. The last note on that is that they're using chemicals and botanical substances to prep people for Stim.
I'm not going to let you take him. You should have followed your orders, kid.
That prepping is the shot that Kidman got that is hiding her from Ruvik. Okay, now this is... We didn't have a chance yet to talk about everything the administrator said there, but we'll get a little chance here. This fight drags on for a bit. Well, it drags on. It's exciting for the whole time. It goes on for a little while because it takes a while. But I want to talk about this fight. So in chapter 5, when Sebastian and Kidman, when Sebastian responded to her saying maybe he didn't see me as a threat, and Sebastian keyed on that word he? Who's he? And that we discussed in the Kumu led to Ruvik basically set Sebastian off on chasing who Kidman is for a while. And then Sebastian sets himself off on chasing who Kidman is. But then later Ruvik redirects him to investigating who Ruvik himself is. That was the misdirection that he gave to Sebastian. What he's doing here with Kidman is the other side of that. He's been playing off of the concept that while he can't get into her brain because she's protected by those botanical and chemical processes that were in the shot that she was given by Mobius before she entered, he can't see directly into her subconscious. He's been able to see into her actions inside Stim. Her actions were her subconscious defying Mobius itself by hinting to her that she's insubordinate, that her credentials were removed, that she had to reinstall it. So he's playing on that feeling. He's making this fight appear as if it's a fight that is brought about by the administrator. He's doing that because what he's actually trying to do is harvest Joseph at this moment. Just as we see every time pulses have gone through from the wireless system and you see Joseph grab his head, we saw him turn once when he was with Sebastian a little bit earlier in chapter 5, which would just be just not very long before this part of the timeline here. From Joseph's perspective, it wasn't that long ago that he started to turn and he struggled with Sebastian. Sebastian pushed him off and then he recovered himself. Well, here it is, it's happening to him again. But this time it's pushing him off wasn't enough. This is requiring actual combat. But this is Ruvik trying to get into the subconscious, to break the will, to break the psyche of Joseph. Now you remember that Joseph survives this because in chapter 6, which comes after this, Sebastian finds him unconscious on the ground. And he says, well, maybe I turned again and I have a splitting headache. Well, there was the first axe blow to the head. Or that was the second axe blow to the head? That was the second axe blow to the head. And so the headache's kind of a given, I guess. But what's happening here to me there are two struggles going on. There's a struggle inside Joseph, internal, between Joseph's force of will and Ruvik's force of will. Ruvik is trying to harvest him. He's trying to break his psyche, same way he breaks others. In chapter 7 of the main game, we talked about how that he doesn't break Joseph by pure force. He makes him almost want the power and the control that comes with just giving in to Ruvik. And that's a different psychological battle, and that's the battle that's playing out inside of Joseph currently. Joseph is feeling powerful from this, but he's trying to, he doesn't like what he's doing. I mean, he would not like, there's a hint in that Joseph is actually, falling for Kidman romantically. I mean, they were, the two of them aren't together, but had a crush on her. And so there's this hint that this is not something that Joseph himself would be doing. This is something that Ruvik would be causing him to do. There's also talk in the main game where Ruvik is talking to Sebastian. He says, "Will it break? I'll make you do things Joseph couldn't handle what I made him do." And this is probably what he was talking about here.
Found you.
But that internal conflict is a tie directly between Victoriano Ruvik and Joseph. The second battle is the obvious one, the one that's going on between Kidman and Joseph. Well, when Kidman finally hits him with this third axe, you see that I'm having a hard time, but when I do eventually hit him the third time with that axe, what she kills isn't Ruvik, or isn't Joseph. It's the tether between Ruvik and Joseph that she severs. You'll see his sores will immediately go away. He doesn't die falling to the ground. Green goo doesn't come out of him. Instead, what happens is the sores go away and he collapses. He looks dead, but we know he survives the game. So we know this. You'll see it in the scene at the end of the DLCs, The Consequence. You'll see them dragging him off. So he's not dead. The reason he's not dead is because Kidman actually saves him here by killing him. She thinks she killed him because she doesn't have the concept of that yet. She doesn't have, unlike Sebastian, she doesn't harvest the bioenergy that's left behind after Ruvik does consume a person. Both Ruvik and Sebastian harvest that energy. Kidman severs that tie, but does not harvest Joseph's energy, and so Joseph survives. His identity snaps back into his body, and she'll find this out later in a few more episodes. During the consequence, she'll run back into Joseph again, and she'll be surprised that he's alive. She thinks she kills him right now with this axe right there. But see, the sores go away, and he collapses. Now, you think he's dead.
Me do this? Damn it, Joseph. You should have just stayed out of the way.
And by those words, Ruvik was successful. He pinned the blame on the voice that you heard there at the end, the administrator. He pinned the blame for that fight on the administrator, even though he was the one orchestrating it. He started the fight because he needed to separate Kidman and Sebastian. He tried to harvest Joseph. He was in that battle, but Kidman manages to sever that tie. So he doesn't get Joseph's life force. He does not consume Joseph. But he was successful in directing the blame for that to the administrator. So Kidman's taken one very large step towards
This house.
insubordination with Mobius.
It can't be.
On the surface, she did what the administrator said she would do, which was kill Joseph. The administrator, as much in that conversation, told her, he said, remove him. And she said, killing Joseph will not solve the problem. So she knew exactly what the order from the administrator was. And here she has performed it, but she's still blaming the administrator for it because the administrator, she feels, orchestrated it.
Please tell me about your family.
Next subject.
No. We've prolonged this talk for a while now. It's important for our understanding of you.
They never gave a shit. Too caught up in that church of theirs. More like a cult. It was like a punishment. Nothing I ever did was good enough for them.
They abused you?
No. It was more like neglect. That's why when I just left, they didn't care. They never came looking, they just gave up.
And you never went back to them?
I did. A couple of years later, they were gone. Everyone was gone. It was like the whole town got up and moved. I should have felt something, but I didn't.
And how do you feel about it now?
The same. They can rot for all I care. It was strange, though. There's a statue in the center of town. An angel with its head in its hands. I used to just stare at it when I was young, thinking it was sad. But now, I felt like even that statue knew how pitiful life was there. What a terrible place.
Well, one other thing I want to point out about the conversation that Kidman had with the administrator is that he used the word "he's feeding off of you," and that falls straight into the harvesting that we've talked about. How all through the Kumu we talked about Ruvik was trying to harvest bioenergy from the poor souls that got attached to Stim, right? And then Sebastian wound up feeding off of some of that same bioenergy, the remnants that were left over inside of some of the haunted, as well as the energy that was forced into the constructs like the amalgam and Laura, the traumas, etc. And so that feeding off of you it's important to realize that that's basically a confirmation of one of the key constructs that we had through the Ikumu. In that conversation with the administrator, he also said, that detective, that he said, they will turn on you. They will all turn on you as soon as they know who you are and what you're doing. Because as soon as they realize that she's a spy instead of a partner,
Leslie!
Leslie,
stop!
that's her fear. That's the administrator played his role. I mean, if you think about the way we've talked about to break a human psyche is to...
The statue lit up in the center of town. It looked like it was crying for all the wasted life in that place.
We've talked about the way to break a human psyche is to provide 10% that the person wants to end, that they want that 10% to end, whether it's fear, pain, suffering, loneliness, whatever it is. They will then put their hope in something external of removing that from that 10% from their life. And that the person that they feed that to, that they give their consent to help them remove that. By doing that, they give that person their 90%. They consent to being governed by that person. And if you think about the things and the wordings that Mobius, the agent from Mobius, the administrator, had in that conversation with Kidman, it's all along those lines, calling her weak, saying she's disappointing them, saying they will turn on you. He's feeding her fear that she will be outcast by the people that are her partners, that her fear that she's weak, that she cannot do things on her own, that she's not capable of being self-resilient. And you're disappointing us, your savior, the people you put the trust in. So, I mean, there's keys there, but remember what Ruvik told her at the end of chapter 1, that we'll see how loyal you are when you find out the truth. And that there are consequences for putting your trust in the wrong place. Remember at the beginning of the last episode, in the beginning of chapter 2, in the last episode, that echo of the consequences of putting your trust in the wrong people, you know, and her subconscious is picking up on that and saying, well, geez, the wrong people are probably Mobius, right? And that's where she's put her trust. So those are important keys to take away from that conversation. I want to point out that in this episode, well, in that last of the personal notes that we found about Kidman, she talked about her parents, and it wasn't people have honed in on that word, the cult-like atmosphere of the church, and made it as if she was given over to the church. But she specifically says she was not abused. She was neglected. They just kind of forgot all about her. We still in this game never get really an answer for what the church is and why it had such an effect on her small town and why she left. We also were told in the main game that Ruvik's parents contributed to the church as well. So that's something that doesn't get fully explained. It's kind of like the administrator. We never get a full picture of exactly when we see the administrator, how much of it's the external administrator at a terminal, how much of it's her subconscious, and how much of it's Ruvik playing off of her subconscious. But we finished 2 different achievements in this game, in this playthrough, this episode. We got an axe is all you need for killing Joseph without using any of the electronic devices. You saw the strategy there. Just hide around that one particular cabinet. Just keep going back to it until you see him walk through the door and then kill him. We also got the last of the personal documents for Kidman, which finished a part of my past achievement. All right, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you in the next one.